Faithful, what's up? Welcome into the 49ers Report right here on Chat Sports. I'm Chase Senior. Hope all of you out there getting set to enjoy Super Bowl 57 between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs as we record this right before the final game of the 2022 NFL season. Obviously, the Niners not playing in this game, but looking ahead into the future, a very bright future for this football team. And could it include some of the players that we're talking about on today's show as we take a look at some 49ers free agent targets. Now, the offseason officially gets underway right after the Super Bowl wraps up. So we're going to be doing a couple of these segments all throughout the offseason on today's show, looking at some of these players. And then we'll continue to go in depth throughout the offseason. But this is why you subscribe, because you want to stay informed around all of the happenings around San Francisco all throughout the offseason. NFL draft buzz, free agency rumors. When signings happen, we cover it better and faster than anybody. So lock us in and subscribe. We're approaching 80,000 subscribers. Let's get there as soon as possible. So let's begin, obviously, with looking at the 49ers available cap space here. Now, I've seen some interesting nuggets out there that if the 49ers restructure the contracts of some of their top highest paid players on that roster, they could free up about $50 million in cap space. And this is an organization that does do things like that. So keep an eye out for that. As of right now, though, San Francisco has currently constituted $8.16 million available in cap space. When I look at this roster right now, with where they currently stand, but also how they lost against the Philadelphia Eagles and how they struggled against the Dallas Cowboys, these are my top offseason needs as of right now. When you take a gander at the roster and something sticks out like a sore thumb, right tackle, are you going to re-sign Mike McGlinchey or go after somebody else? Interior offensive line help along that offensive line, also really important, because I thought San Francisco got their asses kicked in the trenches by Dallas as well as Philadelphia. Kyle Shanahan, this is a message for you. Stop relying on just the scheme. You actually need some dogs up front. I want to see the 49ers bring in a legit defensive end opposite of Nick Bosa to help take the pressure off of him. Then I think cornerback and safety are also some needs. Outside of that, you could look at tight end, because at some point you're going to have to replace George Kittle, but this team in a very, very good position. And after being at the Super Bowl all throughout the week and talking to some people around the league, it seems as though San Francisco very, very confident in having Trey Lance as well as Brock Purdy as their quarterback options. Spoke with Jake Laser. We featured that on the show last week. He does not really expect another veteran to be brought in by this team. Now, you look at the 49ers offensive line going back to some of the needs for this football team. And outside of Trent Williams, a little bit spotty here, according to Pro Football Focus. Aaron Banks gave up, one sack all throughout the year. Pro Football Focus grade sub 63, but the left side of that line of scrimmage for the Niners actually didn't really cause too many worries. Jake Brendel was pretty solid this year. I would just like to see a better, more legit center come in, because that's a really important position, and he struggled on the interior against the interior Eagles defensive line in the NFC Championship game. I do believe that Spencer Burford can improve, but will the 49ers look for an improvement at that right guard spot? And as for Mike McGlinchey, he is set to get paid. That's the consensus from me. That's the consensus from Matt Mayoko, who we also had on the 49ers Report from Super Bowl Radio Row. Why do I think Mike McGlinchey is going to get paid? Because that's the going rate for right tackles in this league. And like him or not, he's a top 10 to 12 right tackle in the sport. NFL salary cap is going to increase this year. So I'm thinking that Mike McGlinchey is going to get somewhere in the neighborhood of $15 to $18 million when you look at where he stands among right tackles and the fact that he's probably the best or second best right tackle who is set to hit the free agency market. Then you rack his salary up with the current highest paid right tackles per year, as we're showing you here. So what do you think about Mike McGlinchey, former top 10 pick who's obviously come under scrutiny from the faithful? Why for yes and for no? Should the Niners bring him back? Let us know down below in the comment section. I do believe that he has an opportunity to get paid out there, no doubt. As for the top offensive line, offensive guards who are going to be free agents here, according to Pro Football Focus, if you're not confident in a guy like Spencer Burford at right guard, do you look to pay big money to Isaac Seumalo, who I actually spent a lot of time with during Super Bowl week? He has consistently improved under the best offensive line coach in the NFL and Jeff Stoutland for Philadelphia, and he's going to be in the midst of getting about $10 million per year, in my opinion, that would be a massive upgrade. He is a scheme fit for Philadelphia. You'd have to pay for him, though. Ben Powers, Dalton Reisner, Evan Brown, the other good offensive guards set to hit the free agency market. Now, what I want you to do right now is name a free agent who you want the Niners to sign. One of my favorite targets is coming up at the end of the show, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Is it a player who we've talked about, somebody else who you like that we haven't talked about? Let us know down below in the comment section. You look at the top free agent right tackles here, going back to Mike McGlinchey, George Fant, Mike McGlinchey, the top two. Billy Turner, Caleb McGarry, also really good, as well as Jawan James. Mike McGlinchey, you can make the argument, better than some of the guys on here. Very good in the run game, struggles at times in pass protection, but I thought that Matt Mayoka made a good point that a lot of offenses across the NFL are using some of the elements that Kyle Shanahan likes to use in his offense, so McGlinchey could be a scheme fit. Now let's go to defensive tackle, because on the interior of this 49ers defensive line, they got bullied a little bit against a good Eagles offensive line in that ground game for Philly, which rushed for nearly 150 rushing yards in the NFC Championship game. Javon Hargrave, I think, is a franchise tag candidate for Philly. He could get around $20 million per year in free agency. He's coming off a career high 11 sacks, and anytime you have double-digit sacks from that defensive tackle spot, that's really impressive. I think he's going to be out of the price range for San Francisco. The player who I'd really love for the Niners to pick up is Daron Payne, former first-round pick out of Alabama. You need better players on the interior of that defensive line. You need more depth, because it's becoming more and more clear that Javon Kinlaw is a certified bust. Daron Payne is the player who I'd love to see the Niners target. Good scheme fit, a guy who's still young, he's ascending, and man, he is an absolute baller. Other than that, the guys on this list, Dalvin Tomlinson, Draymond Jones, Sheldon Rankins, they don't really do it much for me as compared to Hargrave and Daron Payne. It's certainly a top-heavy free agency class around the NFL with the consensus, and then also according to Pro Football Focus. As for some of the safety free agents, if the Niners do lose Jimmy Ward and they don't want to pay him, who Jimmy Ward has voiced this offseason that he wants to go back to safety. That's why he called out A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and said that they're going to pay, as the Niners still not over that NFC Championship game defeat. Then maybe you look at some of the players on this list. Now, Ian Rappaport did report that C.J. Gardner-Johnson, a.k.a. C.D. Deuce, is a player who Philadelphia would like to bring back, tied for the NFL league lead in interceptions this year. He's a really, really good player with a lot of swagger who's added a lot to that Eagles culture inside that locker room and just their overall confidence level in between the lines. I'm interested to see what he gets, because with the New Orleans Saints prior to that preseason trade, he had played a lot out of the slot. Then he went back to safety. So that versatile hybrid option I think is really valuable in today's NFL. And honestly, that's why I became a big fan of Jimmy Ward this year after he moved to nickel. I was a fan of him at that safety spot, but he proved his versatility by playing in the slot. Jesse Bates, Jordan Poyer, pretty solid players. Marcus Epps is a guy who can maybe buy low on, and he can come into San Francisco with Steve Wilkes running the defense now, and he'd be able to be a plug-and-play starter. I think he's become underrated over time. And then Von Bell, opposite of Jesse Bates, very good members of that Cincinnati Bengals secondary. What do you think about Jimmy Ward? We talked about him a lot in depth, too, here on the show. Should the Niners bring him back? I think that he could earn between $10, $13, $14 million for defensive needy teams out there. Want you to give me an S for sign, a P for pass. Sound off with what you think down below. Obviously, we're going to continue to go in depth on a lot of these free agency targets. Once the draft rumors start to heat up a little bit, we'll start diving into some draft prospects as well. Cannot wait for our offseason coverage. Make sure you subscribe, because you don't want to miss any of it. And our job here is to provide coverage for the faithful, to teach you about the game of football so that you become informed about all the happenings around the San Francisco 49ers. So don't forget to subscribe. We appreciate all of you for watching the show. And until next time, we'll catch you right here on the 49ers Report.